You'll rot in here. No one is coming to save you. Tracy's words echoed in my head as I watched her car disappear down the driveway. Mark sat in the passenger seat, laughing at something she said. Their vacation luggage filled the trunk. The Bahamas waited for them while I stood locked inside my own home. I ran to the door and pulled hard. Locked. My hands pounded against the wood until my palms burned red. Tracy, come back. Please. My voice cracked, desperate and afraid. Through the window, I saw Mrs. Patterson watering her flowers next door. I screamed and waved, but she just smiled and waved back, thinking I was being friendly. She couldn't hear me through the thick glass. Please tell me something in the comments section. Where are you watching this story from? And take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel, because every day there's a real story that will shake your heart. The house fell silent except for my ragged breathing. I stumbled to the kitchen, my stomach already tight with hunger. The refrigerator stood almost empty. Half a loaf of bread. 1 bottle of milk. Some wilted lettuce. My phone was gone. Tracy had taken it this morning, claiming she needed to fix something with my service plan. I was trapped. Completely and utterly trapped. And my own daughter had done this to me. My name is Helen Whitmore, and I'm 72 years old. 6 months ago, I would have told you my daughter Tracy was the most caring person in the world. She visited often, helped with groceries and organized my bills. After my husband died 3 years back, having her around made the loneliness easier. But I was wrong about everything. It started small. Tracy began coming over more frequently, always with that concerned look on her face. She'd sit at my kitchen table and sort through my mail, asking questions about my finances. "Mom, these bills are so confusing," she'd say, shaking her head. "Why don't you let me handle them? You've worked hard your whole life. You deserve to relax now." It seemed reasonable. I was getting older, and sometimes I did forget things. Just normal aging, nothing serious. But Tracy made it sound like I was falling apart. "What if you forget to pay for something important?" she'd ask. "What if the electricity gets shut off? I'd never forgive myself if something happened to you." So I let her help. I signed papers she brought over, trusting they were just to make managing my accounts easier. She was my daughter. Why wouldn't I trust her? The truth revealed itself on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I had gone upstairs to rest while Tracy and her husband Mark talked in the kitchen below. The old heating vents in this house carried sound perfectly, and their voices drifted up to where I stood at the top of the stairs. "Once everything's in our name, she can't do anything about it," Tracy said. Her voice was cold, calculating. Nothing like the sweet tone she used with me. The house, the bank accounts, all of it. "We just need to wait a little longer." Mark's response made my blood freeze. "How much longer? I'm tired of pretending to care about your mother. She's so needy and pathetic." Tracy laughed. "Not much longer. I've got her right where I want her." I gripped the banister so hard my knuckles went white. My legs shook beneath me. This couldn't be real. My own daughter wouldn't do this to me. But the evidence was right there, floating up through those vents, poisoning everything I thought I knew. I crept back to my bedroom and shut the door silently. In my closet, hidden behind shoeboxes, was my husband's will. He had made me promise to keep it safe, to never let anyone pressure me into changing it. Now I understood why he'd been so insistent. Things changed rapidly after that. Tracy canceled my phone plan the following week, claiming it cost too much. "You barely use it anyway, Mom. Think of all the money you'll save." Without my phone, I couldn't call friends or family. I was cut off from the outside world. Then my car vanished from the driveway. Tracy said I was too dangerous behind the wheel. "You've had 3 accidents this year. The insurance company is threatening to drop you." I hadn't had any accidents, but she showed me official-looking papers that proved otherwise. I was so confused I stopped arguing. My doctor appointments got rescheduled without my knowledge. My friends stopped visiting. When I asked Tracy about it, she sighed like I was being difficult. Mom, you can't even remember to take your pills correctly. Please just trust me. I'm trying to help you. But she wasn't helping. She was trapping me. Day by day, she removed every piece of my independence until I was completely isolated. No phone, no car, no contact with anyone who might notice what was happening. One afternoon, I found my address book in the trash. Every name had been crossed out in thick red marker. Tracy began spreading lies about me to the neighbors. I first noticed it when Mrs. Patterson started looking at me strangely. Then other neighbors began avoiding eye contact when I waved from my window. One morning, I overheard Tracy talking to Mr. Chun from across the street. She stood on my front porch, her voice loud enough for me to hear from inside. Her memory is getting so bad, Tracy said sadly. Yesterday she forgot who I was. Called me by her sister's name. The doctors say it's only going to get worse from here. Mr. Chun made sympathetic noises. That must be so hard for you. It is, Tracy replied. But she's my mother. I'll take care of her no matter what. I wanted to run outside and scream the truth. But who would believe me? Tracy had created the perfect story. A devoted daughter caring for her declining mother. And I had no way to prove otherwise. Mark made it worse one evening. As I sat in the living room pretending to watch television, he walked past with Tracy and muttered, "Soon she won't even remember what she signed." They both laughed. The sound made my skin crawl. I was living with people who wanted me gone. And I had no way out. The morning they announced their vacation, Tracy arrived early with coffee and pastries. She seemed unusually cheerful, almost giddy. "Mark and I are going to the Bahamas for a week," she announced, setting a cup in front of me. "You'll be perfectly fine here, Mom. I've stocked the fridge with everything you need." I followed her to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator to show me. Half a loaf of bread. 1 bottle of milk. A jar of peanut butter. Some lettuce that was already turning brown. "Tracy, this isn't enough food for a week," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice calm. She waved her hand dismissively. "You hardly eat anything anyway. You'll be fine. Besides, we'll be back before you know it." Something in her smile terrified me. Mark appeared with their luggage, loading it into the car. Tracy walked through the house, checking windows. I heard the back door lock click. She pocketed the key. Then she came to where I stood by the front door. "Have a wonderful week, Mom," she said, kissing my cheek. Her lips felt cold against my skin. She stepped outside and pulled the door shut. I heard the lock turn. That's when she said it, her voice clear through the door. "You'll rot in here. No one is coming to save you." I spent the first night trying every door and window in the house. All locked. The back door had been nailed shut from the outside. I could see the nail heads through the window. Tracy had planned this carefully. I screamed until my throat was raw. But no sound carried beyond these walls. The neighbors were too far away, and even if they heard something, they'd probably think it was just the confused old woman Tracy had described. The second day, thirst became unbearable. I rationed the milk, taking tiny sips that barely wet my tongue. The bread was stale and hard, but I forced down small pieces. I needed to survive long enough for someone to realize what was happening. But who would come? Tracy had isolated me perfectly. No one would think to check on me. Everyone believed I was being well cared for by my devoted daughter. On the third night, stumbling through the darkness, I remembered something. The basement. My husband had kept an old rotary phone down there, connected to a separate line. He'd insisted on keeping it functional, saying you never knew when you might need a backup. I felt my way to the basement door, my hands shaking from weakness and fear. The stairs stretched down into complete darkness. Without a flashlight, I'd have to navigate by memory and touch alone. I took a deep breath and started down. The fifth step gave out beneath me. My foot slipped, and suddenly I was falling, tumbling down the stairs. My body slammed against each step before hitting the concrete floor at the bottom. Pain exploded through my hip and shoulder. I lay there gasping, unable to move for several minutes. Had I broken something? I didn't know. But I couldn't stop now. If I stayed here, I would die. I dragged myself across the cold basement floor, my injured hip screaming with every movement. My hands searched in the darkness, touching boxes, old furniture, cobwebs. Where was it? Where was the phone? Finally, my fingers brushed against smooth plastic. The phone base, buried under a pile of old blankets. I pulled it toward me with trembling hands. Please work. Please still be connected. I traced the cord to the wall jack and pushed the plug in firmly. Then I lifted the receiver to my ear with shaking hands. The dial tone was faint, but it was there. I almost sobbed with relief. My fingers found the rotary dial. 911. Each rotation felt like it took forever. My hand kept slipping, and I had to start over twice. Finally it rang. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice sounded like an angel. I tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. My throat was too dry, too damaged from screaming. Hello? Can you hear me? Do you need help? Yes, I croaked. They locked me in. My daughter. She left me to die. Ma'am, I can barely hear you. Can you speak up? I tried. Please. Help me. They locked all the doors. No food. No water. I'm trapped. What's your address, ma'am? I managed to tell her. The numbers felt wrong in my mouth, but I forced them out. The operator promised help was coming, told me to stay on the line. I held the receiver against my ear like a lifeline. Time became strange. I might have passed out. I don't remember. The next thing I knew, sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the basement window. Heavy footsteps pounded across the porch above my head. Then the crack of wood as they broke down the front door. Police. Anyone here? Basement, I whispered, but they must have heard because footsteps thundered down the stairs. Paramedics rushed to me. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. Another held water to my cracked lips. Above, I heard an officer speaking into his radio. This wasn't an accident. The back doors nailed shut from outside. The victim appears severely dehydrated. I woke in a hospital bed with tubes in my arm and a heart monitor beeping nearby. Sunlight streamed through the window, too bright after days in darkness. A woman sat in the chair beside my bed, reading from a folder. When I stirred, she looked up and smiled gently. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Dana Collins. I'm a social worker assigned to your case. Water, I whispered. She helped me drink from a cup with a straw. The cool liquid felt like heaven on my throat. Can you tell me what happened? Dana asked softly. I told her everything. About Tracy's visits, the signed papers, the locked doors, being left to die. Dana listened carefully, taking notes. The police contacted your daughter in the Bahamas, Dana said when I finished. She claimed you wanted to stay home alone for the week. Said you insisted you'd be fine. That's a lie. I believe you. Dana hesitated before continuing. Mrs. Whitmore, there's something you need to know. According to county records, your daughter legally owns your home now. The property transfer was filed 2 months ago. The room tilted. What? You signed papers transferring ownership. Do you remember? I did remember. Tracy had brought documents, called them a safety agreement, in case something happened to me. She'd said it would make things simpler, that nothing would really change. She tricked me, I whispered. She said it was just paperwork, that I'd still live there. Dana's expression softened with sympathy. That's what we're going to prove. Mrs. Whitmore, I think you have a strong case for elder abuse and financial exploitation. For 2 days, I stared out the hospital window, watching cars come and go in the parking lot below. Normal people living normal lives. People whose children hadn't tried to murder them. I had lost everything. My home, my savings, my independence. Tracy had taken it all while pretending to care for me, and I had been foolish enough to trust her. Tears ran down my face constantly those first days. But slowly, something else began to grow inside me. Not sadness. Anger. Pure, burning anger at Tracy for betraying me. At myself for being so blind. At the unfairness of it all. Not yet. I whispered to my reflection in the window on the second evening. This isn't over yet. Dana appeared in the doorway, carrying a folder. Mrs. Whitmore, I have resources for you. Legal aid organizations that specialize in elder abuse cases. I think you have grounds to fight this. I took the folder with trembling hands. Inside were names, phone numbers, information about lawyers who might help. A lifeline when I thought I had none. Why are you helping me? I asked. Dana sat in the chair beside my bed. Because what happened to you was wrong. And because you deserve justice. I looked at the folder again. Will any of this work? Can I really get my house back? I don't know, Dana admitted. But we're going to try. Are you willing to fight? I thought about Tracy's smile as she locked that door. About Mark's cruel laughter. About the 3 days I'd spent thinking I would die alone. Yes, I said firmly. I'm willing to fight. Tracy arrived at the hospital 3 days after I was admitted. I heard her before I saw her, loud, dramatic sobs echoing down the hallway. She burst into my room with mascara running down her face, her whole body shaking. Mom. Oh, Mom. I'm so sorry. I had no idea you'd fallen. We just needed a little break. You know how exhausting it's been taking care of you. I said nothing, just watched her performance. Dana had given me a small recording device that morning. It was hidden in the blanket on my lap, already running. Sit down, I said quietly. Tell me what happened from your perspective. Tracy launched into her story. How tired she'd been. How I'd insisted I'd be fine alone for a week. How she'd left plenty of food and water. How it wasn't her fault I'd gotten confused and fallen down the stairs. I feel terrible, she said, fresh tears spilling. Mark kept saying we shouldn't go, that you couldn't handle being alone. He said you'd never survive a whole week by yourself. But I told him you'd be fine. There it was. The admission that Mark had known, that they'd both known exactly what would happen when they left me locked inside. Tracy kept talking, digging herself deeper with every word. She talked about the property transfer, how it was for my own good. About canceling my phone because I couldn't manage it anymore. About how much she'd sacrificed to take care of me. I nodded and made sympathetic sounds, playing the role of the confused old woman she expected. When she finally left, I pulled out the recorder and saved the file. Evidence. Dana connected me with an attorney named Claire Ross. She was in her 50s, with iron gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She specialized in elder exploitation cases, and agreed to take mine pro bono. Tell me everything, Claire said when she visited my hospital room. She pulled out a notepad and pen. I told her the whole story. From Tracy's increasingly frequent visits to the overheard conversation to the locked door to the recording I'd just made. Claire listened without interrupting, her pen flying across the pages. When I finished, she sat back and studied with me. Do you remember signing the property transfer documents? Yes. Tracy said they were just safety papers. She said nothing would actually change. Were you on any medication when you signed them? I thought back. Yes. I just had knee surgery. They gave me something strong for the pain. I remember feeling foggy for several days. Claire's eyes sharpened. What kind of pain medication? I don't remember the name. Something with an O? It made me very sleepy. Claire wrote something down and circled it. Mrs. Whitmore, if you were on medication that impaired your judgment, and your daughter used that opportunity to pressure you into signing documents you didn't fully understand, that's coercion. It's illegal. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in days. You really think we can prove that? I know we can. Let me start pulling your medical records and bank statements. We'll build a case showing systematic exploitation. She leaned forward. Mrs. Whitmore, are you prepared for this? Taking on your own daughter in court won't be easy. I thought about hunger, thirst, and terror. I'm prepared. Over the next week, Claire and I went through every document we could find. Bank statements, medical records, signed papers. Each one felt like a fresh betrayal. Claire discovered things I hadn't even known about. Thousands of dollars withdrawn from my savings account over the past 6 months. Checks made out to Tracy with my forged signature. Bills paid to companies that didn't exist. Look at this, Claire said one afternoon, pointing to a bank statement. $40,000 labeled home care expenses, paid directly to your daughter's personal credit card. I stared at the number, feeling sick. Home care? She just visited sometimes. That's not home care. Exactly. She was stealing from you systematically and creating fake documentation to cover it up. Claire's jaw tightened with anger. She thought you'd never find out. That you'd die before anyone noticed. How much did she take in total? Claire flipped through several pages. From what I can see so far, over $80,000. And that's just in the past year. $80,000. I felt dizzy. That was most of what my husband had left me. Money we'd saved over 40 years of marriage. We're getting it back, Claire promised. Every penny. And we're getting your house back too. How? I'm filing a motion to reverse the property transfer based on coercion and diminished capacity due to medication. Your medical records show you were on heavy narcotics when you signed. That's our strongest evidence. Tracy called me that evening. Her voice sounded confident, almost smug. She thought she'd won. Mom, I talked to your doctor today. He agrees that you can't live alone anymore. Mark and I have been looking at some really nice assisted living facilities. No. Y interrupta. Silence. Then, what did you say? I said no, Tracy. I'm not going into a facility. I'm going home. To my house. She laughed, that condescending sound I'd grown to hate. Mom, you're confused. That's not your house anymore, remember? You signed it over to me. And after what happened, you clearly can't take care of yourself. I didn't fall, I said, my voice steady and cold. I crawled down the basement stairs after you locked me in without food or water for 3 days. There's a difference. The silence stretched long. Then carefully, Mom, that's not what happened. You're remembering it wrong. So were you when you locked that door, I said. So were you when you told Mark I'd never survive alone. I heard you, Tracy. And I have proof. I heard her sharp intake of breath. What are you talking about? You'll find out soon enough. My lawyer is filing papers tomorrow. Your lawyer? Her voice rose. Mom, you don't need a lawyer. This is family business. You stopped being family when you left me to rot. I hung up. My hands shook. but I felt powerful. For the first time in months, I had control, and I was going to use it. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. I sat beside Claire at a wooden table, my hands folded in my lap. Across the aisle, Tracy and Mark sat with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Tracy wore a conservative navy dress and pearls, her hair pulled back neatly. She looked like the perfect concerned daughter. But I know the truth now. The judge was an older woman named Patricia Hernandez. She had silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Tracy's attorney spoke first, painting a picture of a devoted daughter caring for her increasingly confused mother. He called it a tragic misunderstanding and an unfortunate accident. My client has documentation showing Mrs. Whitmore willingly transferred her property, he said smoothly. The incident with the locked door was simply a mistake. Mrs. Whitmore has memory issues and often becomes confused about whether doors are locked or unlocked. I wanted to scream, but Claire had coached me. Stay calm. Let the evidence speak. Then it was our turn. Claire stood, holding up a small device. Your Honor, I have a recording made by Mrs. Whitmore after the incident. I'd like permission to play it for the court. The judge nodded. Go ahead. The courtroom fell completely silent as Tracy's voice filled the air through the speakers. Every word. Every admission. Mark said you'd never survive alone. She can't change her mind once it's in our name. I watched Tracy's face turn white. Mark stared at his hands. Their attorney's confident expression crumbled. When the recording ended, gasps echoed through the courtroom. The judge's expression had hardened into something cold and unforgiving. Claire didn't stop with the recording. She presented each piece of evidence methodically, building a wall of proof that Tracy couldn't knock down. The medical records show I was on heavy narcotics when I signed the property transfer. The bank statements reveal stolen money, the forged checks, the fake invoices. The police report documents the nailed-shut door and nearly empty refrigerator. This wasn't an accident, Claire said firmly, addressing the judge. This was a calculated, systematic plan to steal her mother's assets and ultimately end her life. Tracy's attorney tried to object, tried to explain away each piece of evidence. But there was too much. The pile was too high, too damning. The judge studied the documents for what felt like hours. The courtroom remained silent, everyone waiting. Finally, Judge Hernandez looked up. Her voice was hard as stone. I'm issuing an immediate freeze on all assets currently held by Tracy Morrison. Additionally, I'm reversing the property transfer and returning full ownership of the residence to Helen Whitmore. I felt Claire's hand squeeze mine under the table. We'd done it. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for possible criminal prosecution. This court takes elder abuse very seriously, and what I've seen here today is beyond troubling. It's criminal. Tracy burst into tears. Mark sat frozen, his face pale. Their attorney gathered his papers quickly, already planning their defense for what came next. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Justice wasn't just possible. It was happening. By the next morning, news of the case had spread. The local television station ran the story on the evening broadcast. Elderly woman left to die by daughter during luxury vacation. My face appeared on screen, and suddenly everyone in town knew what Tracy had done to me. The neighbors who'd believed her lies now looked at her with horror. Her friends stopped calling. Mark's employer suggested he resign after customers complained. The community rallied around me instead. Cards and flowers arrived at the hospital. The senior center where I used to volunteer gave me a Courage Award. People I barely knew offered help. Tracy's carefully constructed life fell apart, and I watched it happen with no sympathy. She had tried to destroy me. Now she was living with the consequences. The district attorney filed formal charges: elder abuse, theft, financial exploitation, false imprisonment. Tracy would have to answer for everything in criminal court. I attended every preliminary hearing, sitting in the front row where she could see me. I wanted her to know that I had survived, that she had failed. Her attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor refused. The evidence was too strong, the crime too serious. This case was going to trial, and I would be there for every moment of it. 6 months after the first trial, Tracy and Mark lost everything. A foreclosure notice appeared on their house. The yard grew wild and overgrown. The windows stayed dark. Mark had left Tracy by then, claiming he'd been manipulated by her, that it was all her idea. The courts didn't fully believe him, but he got a lighter sentence: community service and probation. Tracy wasn't so lucky. She sat alone in her empty house, bills piling up on the table, no job, no friends, no future. The silence she'd once forced on me now surrounded her completely. Sometimes I drove past her house just to see it, to remind myself that justice was real, that actions had consequences. Part of me felt sorry for her. A small part. The mother part that remembered holding her as a baby, teaching her to ride a bike, watching her graduate. But that part was very small now. The rest of me remembered being locked in that house. I remembered hunger, the thirst, the fear. I remembered crawling down those basement stairs, not knowing if I'd live or die. She had made her choices. Now she lives with them. Her attorney sent a letter proposing a settlement. Tracy would pay full restitution, complete community service, and issue a public apology in exchange for reduced jail time. I considered it carefully, discussing options with Claire. In the end, I agreed. Not because I forgave her, but because I was tired. Tired of court, tired of fighting, tired of letting her take up space in my mind. I moved back into my house on a warm spring day. Volunteers from the community had repainted every room, repaired all the damage, and planted flowers in the garden. The place felt fresh and new. Mine again in a way it hadn't been for months. My first act was planting roses in the front yard. Yellow ones, my husband's favorite. As I dug in the soft earth, I felt his presence beside me, proud of how I'd fought back. While unpacking boxes later, I found something hidden behind the water heater in the basement. A small metal box I'd forgotten about. Inside were letters, old family letters my husband had saved over the years. I sat on the basement floor and read through them, tears streaming down my face. Letters from my parents, from friends, from Tracy when she was young and innocent. One letter from Tracy, written when she was 10, said, "Dear Mommy, I love you so much. You're the best mom in the whole world. I'm going to take care of you when you're old, just like you take care of me now. Love, Tracy." I stared at those words for a long time. When did that love turn to greed? When had I stopped being her mother and become just an obstacle to wealth? I kept that letter, tucking it into my pocket. Not as forgiveness, but as a reminder that people change, that trust can be broken, that love isn't always enough. Tracy asked to meet me privately 3 months after the settlement. Against Claire's advice, I agreed. We met at a small cafe downtown, neutral territory. She looked terrible. Thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She'd aged years in just months. "Mom," she started, her voice shaking. "Don't call me that," I interrupted. "You lost that right when you locked me in that house." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. The money, the pressure from Mark." "Stop blaming Mark. You made your own choices." "I know." Her voice broke. "I know I did. Mom, Helen, what can I do? How can I ever make this right?" I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had been my baby, my little girl, my daughter. And I felt nothing but tired. Nothing, I said finally. You can't make it right. You gave me back my house and my money, but you can't give me back trust. You can't give me back those 3 days when I thought I would die alone. You can't erase what you did. So what do I do now? She whispered. You live with it. You live with knowing what you're capable of. And maybe someday you become a better person. But that's not my problem anymore. I stood to leave. She grabbed my hand desperately. Please, don't leave like this. I looked down at her. You left me to rot, Tracy. I think I can walk out of a cafe. The final court hearing determined Tracy's official sentence. She had agreed to pay full restitution. Every penny she'd stolen, plus interest. 500 hours of community service at a senior care facility. And a public apology read aloud in court. I sat in the front row as she stood before Judge Hernandez, her voice trembling as she read from the paper her lawyer had prepared. The words sounded hollow, meaningless. But they were required. I deeply regret my actions against my mother, Helen Whitmore. I betrayed her trust, exploited her when she was vulnerable, and caused her tremendous suffering. I accept full responsibility for what I did, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to become a better person. The judge's voice was stern. Ms. Morrison, you violated the most sacred trust that exists, the bond between parent and child. You exploited your mother when she needed you most. This court hopes that your sentence teaches you that every action has consequences. Tracy nodded, tears streaming down her face. Mark sat in the back row, avoiding everyone's eyes. They were both broken, and they had done it to themselves. I walked out of the courthouse into bright sunshine. Claire hugged me. It's really over now, she said. I took a deep breath of fresh, free air. Yes, it finally is. That night, for the first time in over a year, I slept peacefully. A year passed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Mark had moved to another state, starting over somewhere far away. Tracy was living in a tiny apartment, working 2 minimum wage jobs to pay her restitution. Her old friends had abandoned her. Her reputation was destroyed. She had lost everything, just as she'd planned for me to lose everything. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel guilty. But then I'd remember the thirst, the hunger, the terror. I'd remember her smile as she locked that door. And I felt nothing but peace. One day at the senior center where I volunteered, I noticed a new volunteer sorting donations in the corner. I looked closer. Tracy. She was fulfilling her community service hours here. Our eyes met across the room. She looked away first, her face flushing red with shame. I nodded once, acknowledging her presence, then went back to helping other seniors. Over the following weeks, I watched her work. She was gentle with the elderly residents, patient and kind. Maybe she was learning something. Maybe this experience was changing her. Or maybe she was just going through the motions. Either way, it wasn't my concern anymore. I had my own life to live, and I refused to spend any more of it worrying about Tracy. One morning, I found a letter on my doorstep. No return address, but I recognized Tracy's handwriting immediately. I almost threw it away unread. But curiosity won out. The letter was handwritten, simple and raw. Mom, I know you'll probably never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But working at the senior center has taught me what I should have learned from you. That elderly people deserve respect, care, and dignity. I see my face in every family member who visits. I see what I should have been. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I destroyed. I'm sorry. Tracy. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Maybe I never would be. Forgiveness wasn't required. But I could acknowledge that she was trying to change. A few weeks later at the senior center, Tracy approached me hesitantly. "Mrs. Whitmore, could you show me how to arrange the flower displays? I want to learn how to do it properly." I studied her for a long moment. She looked nervous, uncertain, genuinely wanting to learn. Finally, I nodded. "All right. Follow me." We worked together in silence, arranging roses and daisies in vases. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. A tiny step towards something I couldn't yet name. Maybe nothing would come of it. Maybe everything would. Time would tell. Spring arrived again, bringing warm sunshine and new growth. My garden exploded with color. Yellow roses, purple irises, white daisies. The flowers my husband had loved surrounded the house in vibrant beauty. I hosted a gathering for friends and neighbors, people who had supported me through everything. We sat on the lawn drinking lemonade, eating cookies, watching the flowers sway in the gentle breeze. Mrs. Patterson from next door apologized again for believing Tracy's lies. I squeezed her hand. "You didn't know. None of us did." She was very convincing. Someone asked how I was really doing, deep down. I thought about the question carefully, wanting to give an honest answer. "I'm good," I said finally, looking around at all the friendly faces. "Better than good. I'm alive. I'm free. I'm home. And I'm surrounded by people who genuinely care about me." I learned something important through all of this. "What's that?" Mrs. Patterson asked. I smiled, looking at the yellow roses blooming brilliantly in the sunlight. Tracy tried to bury me. She locked me away in darkness and hoped I would rot. But she forgot something crucial. About human nature. You can't bury someone who remembers how to grow. The group fell silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. The applause spread until everyone was standing, cheering for me. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they were good tears. Healing tears. The sun warmed my face. The roses filled the air with their sweet fragrance. And I was home, truly home, in every possible way. Tracy had taken so much from me. My trust, my money, nearly my life. But she couldn't take the most important things. She couldn't take my strength, my will to survive, my refusal to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. I had crawled down those basement stairs bleeding and broken. I had made that phone call with my last bit of strength. I had fought back in court when it would have been easier to give up. And I had won. Not just in court. Not just getting my house back. I had won something bigger. I had reclaimed myself. Later that evening, after everyone left, I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. The neighborhood was quiet except for birds singing their evening songs. My phone rang. It was Claire. Just checking in. "How was your party?" "Perfect," I said honestly. "Absolutely perfect." "You sound happy." "I am. For the first time in years, I really am." "You deserve it, Helen. After everything you've been through, you deserve every bit of happiness." After we hung up, I stayed on the porch as darkness fell. Lightning bugs began to flicker in the garden, tiny points of light dancing among the flowers. I remembered summer evenings like this with my husband, sitting together in comfortable silence, watching the world settle into night. I did it. I whispered to him, wherever he was. I survived. I fought back. I won. A warm breeze rustled through the roses, and I chose to believe it was his answer. He was proud of me. I was proud of myself. Inside the house, I made a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table with my journal. I had started writing everything down, processing what had happened, turning trauma into words that I could control. Today's entry began. 1 year ago, My daughter locked me in this house and left me to die. Today, I hosted a party in the garden, surrounded by love and friendship. The difference between those 2 days is everything. I wrote for an hour, filling pages with thoughts and feelings. When I finished, I closed the journal and put it away. Some things needed to be remembered, but they didn't need to control my present. Tomorrow, I will volunteer at the senior center again. I would see Tracy there, working silently in the corner. And I would continue to live my life fully, refusing to let her shadow darken my days. She had tried to make me disappear. Instead, she had disappeared from the life she knew. And I had bloomed in ways I never expected. As I climbed the stairs to bed, I paused at the window overlooking the garden. The moon illuminated the yellow roses, making them glow softly in the darkness. They stood tall and strong, roots deep in the earth, reaching toward the sky. Just like me, I had been buried in darkness, left to rot forgotten. But I had found my way back to the light. I had grown through the cracks in the concrete, pushing toward the sun with determination that surprised even me. Tracy had underestimated me. She had seen a frail old woman who could be easily controlled and discarded. She hadn't seen the fighter underneath, the survivor, the woman who refused to quit. That was her mistake, and it cost her everything. I climbed into bed, pulling the soft blankets up to my chin. Outside my window, the night was peaceful. Inside my heart, I was finally at peace too. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new moments to treasure. But tonight, I simply rested in the knowledge that I had won the most important battle of my life. I had survived. And more than that, I had thrived. The last thing I thought before sleep took me was simple and true. You tried to bury me, Tracy. But you forgot that I'm a seed, not a stone. And seeds always find a way to grow toward the light. My eyes closed. My breathing slowed. And I drifted into dreams filled not with darkness and locked doors, but with gardens in full bloom and endless blue skies. I was free. Finally, completely, beautifully free. And nothing, not Tracy, not the past, not fear, could ever cage me again.